Have you ever sat across from your grown-up child, maybe over a quiet cup of coffee, or during what was supposed to be a warm family dinner, and heard them say something that made your heart ache? A sentence that sounded harmless to anyone else, but somehow cut deep inside. Tone, a word, dismissal, and then you told yourself, they're just tired, they're stressed, they didn't mean it. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. But what if I told you, some words aren't random. They're red flags. They're warning signs of an unhealthy pattern, a slow erosion of your peace, your self-respect, your happiness. This isn't about abandoning your children. This isn't about resentment or blame. It's about awareness. It's about knowing when love has turned into obligation, when care has turned into control, when respect has been quietly replaced by disregard. Because sometimes the hardest truth is this: even the ones we love the most can hurt us the deepest. And there comes a time when you must protect yourself, when you must say, enough. In this video, we'll talk about those subtle signs, the words and behaviors you can't afford to ignore. Not because you're weak, but because you deserve peace. Of course, parents and their adult children won't always see eye to eye. Disagreements are a natural part of life, part of growth. But there's a fine line between occasional misunderstandings and words that slowly wound the heart. When certain phrases are repeated over and over, they stop being harmless. They become patterns. And patterns shape the tone of an entire relationship. It often starts quietly. A dismissive comment here, a sarcastic remark there. You tell yourself they didn't mean it that way. Maybe I'm just overthinking. But deep inside, the words don't leave. They echo when the conversation is over, leaving a heaviness you can't quite name. This isn't about abandoning your child or closing the door on love. It's about protecting your peace, your dignity, and your emotional well-being. Because words, especially from those we love most, carry power. And when that power is used carelessly or cruelly, it can slowly erode the trust and tenderness that family is built on. So let's talk about the red flag phrases that reveal deeper issues. Not to condemn, but to awaken awareness. Because love without respect is not truly love. 8 hurtful things adult children say that you shouldn't ignore. 1. You owe me. Sometimes these words aren't spoken outright. They hide in subtle tones, in quiet sighs, in remarks that seem harmless on the surface but carry the heavy weight of guilt. They might sound like, I wouldn't be struggling if you had done better as a parent. You're the reason my life turned out like this. After everything you did or didn't do, don't you think you should make it up to me? These words cut deep because they twist what was once love and sacrifice into a lifelong debt. They dig into your past, highlighting moments you wish you could change, mistakes you already carry in your heart, and they use them as leverage. The truth is, no parent is perfect. We raise our children with the knowledge, resources, and emotional capacity we have at the time. We stumble, we learn, we love. Sometimes we fail, but most parents try their very best. Yet for some adult children, especially those struggling with their own unresolved pain, it becomes easier to look backward and point fingers rather than take responsibility for their own lives. When your grown child uses your past, real or imagined, as a weapon to demand endless sacrifice, it's not love. It's not even honest dialogue. It's emotional manipulation. Guilt becomes the chain that keeps you tied to their unhappiness, their choices, their inability to move forward. And you begin to feel like no matter how much you give, it's never enough. But here's the truth you must remember. Love is not a debt. You gave them your time, your care, your best efforts, even if imperfect. You do not owe them your entire life, nor do you owe endless payment for their hardships. There is a difference between helping your child in times of genuine need and becoming a permanent emotional crutch because they refuse to take accountability for their own journey. Healthy love allows room for growth, forgiveness, and understanding. It acknowledges past pain but doesn't live inside it like a prison. It's based on mutual respect, not guilt. If you find yourself constantly defending your past or feeling like you must make up for it, every time your child is upset, step back. Ask yourself, is this really love, or is this control through guilt? Real relationships, yes, even between parent and child, must evolve. At some point, they must become adult to adult, based on mutual care, not endless repayment. If your child refuses to see this, it may be time to gently but firmly set boundaries. Because the truth is, carrying someone else's blame doesn't heal them, and it will slowly destroy you. 2. You're too old to understand. First, it might sound casual, maybe even playful, but the sting is real. When your grown child says, "You wouldn't get it, you're too old to understand," it doesn't just dismiss a single opinion or comment. It dismisses your entire lived experience, your hard-won wisdom, and the countless ways you've navigated life's challenges. What they fail to see is the depth of what you carry. You've survived storms they can't even imagine. You've built a family, worked through hardships, endured heartbreak, and still found ways to keep going. You've lived through seasons of joy and loss, through times when the world itself felt different. You've learned lessons that don't come from books or screens, but from decades of being tested, growing, and enduring. And yet, with one phrase, "You're too old to understand," all of that is brushed aside. Your insights are labeled outdated. Your perspective is dismissed as irrelevant. But here's the truth. Aging does not make you useless. In fact, it deepens you. It gives you clarity, resilience, and a perspective that only comes with time. There are lessons your child hasn't yet lived long enough to grasp. The fears and pressures they feel today are not new, they've simply changed shape. And while the world evolves, the core of human nature, love, pain, ambition, insecurity, remains the same. When a child uses your age as an excuse to belittle your thoughts, it often reveals their own immaturity. They may be overwhelmed by their current struggles, feeling as if no one else could possibly get it. Or they may be caught in the arrogance of youth, believing that everything before their generation is obsolete. But remember this: you don't need to prove your worth to anyone, not even your child. You have value simply because of who you are and what you've lived through. If your wisdom is dismissed, it doesn't make it any less true. If your experiences are ignored, it doesn't erase their power. Sometimes, the best response isn't to argue or to try and force understanding. It's to remain steady in your dignity, knowing that time will eventually teach them what they cannot yet see. And when life does its teaching, as it always does, they may one day look back and realize the depth of what you tried to share. Respect should not be conditional on age, trend, or circumstance. It is the foundation of any healthy relationship, especially between parent and child. If that respect is missing, you have the right to set boundaries, even if it means stepping back from the conversation. Because your worth is not diminished by someone else's inability to see it. 3. If you don't help me, I'll handle it myself. On the surface, it might sound like independence. If you don't help me, I'll take care of it myself. Spoken in a calm, respectful tone, those words would mean your child is ready to stand on their own 2 feet. But when the tone shifts, when it's said sharply, with anger, with an edge of coldness, it stops being independence and becomes something far more painful. Emotional blackmail. Might sound like this: if you don't give me the money, don't expect me to visit again. If you won't do this for me, then I guess I don't need you in my life at all. Those words carry a threat, even if it's subtle. It's not a conversation. It's an ultimatum. It's a way of saying, give me what I want or lose me. But here's the truth. Love should never come with conditions like that. A healthy parent-child relationship is built on mutual respect, understanding, and care, not on fear. If your child uses the bond you share as leverage to demand things, that's not love, it's manipulation. It's a power play designed to keep you trapped in guilt and anxiety. And let's be clear, helping your child, even as an adult, is not wrong. We all want to support those we love. But when help is demanded with threats of abandonment, it crosses a line. It stops being about love or need and becomes about control. You raised your child with the best you could give: your time, your sacrifices, your care. You are not an endless resource to be drained whenever life gets hard for them. You are a human being with your own needs, boundaries, and dignity. When they say, if you don't help me, I'll handle it myself, as a way to shame or frighten you, they're exploiting your love. They know you care deeply, and they're using that care to get what they want. But the cost is high. It erodes trust, it breeds resentment, and it places you in a constant state of fear that you'll lose your child if you don't comply. But here's something to remember. Real love is free, not forced. A child who truly values you won't threaten to walk away over material things or temporary disagreements. They will talk, they will negotiate, they will seek understanding. They won't weaponize your bond. If you find yourself in this situation, it's important to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, am I saying yes out of love or out of fear? And what does it say about the relationship if love must constantly be proven by giving in to unreasonable demands? Setting boundaries isn't easy, especially with someone you love so deeply. But healthy love cannot grow in the soil of emotional blackmail. It grows in freedom, honesty, and respect. And you have the right to protect your peace, even if it means saying no to manipulation. 4. I'm like this because of you. Few words cut deeper than these. I'm like this because of you. It's a phrase that instantly fills a parent with a mixture of guilt, sadness, and helplessness. After all, no parent is perfect. Every parent makes mistakes, sometimes out of ignorance, sometimes out of exhaustion, sometimes simply because life itself is hard. But when your grown-up child repeats this blame over and over, using it as a shield for every wrong choice or failed plan in their own life, it becomes something more than just a moment of pain. It becomes a pattern. And it's a pattern that quietly erodes your peace. Yes, you may have made mistakes. Maybe you were too strict. Or maybe not strict enough. Maybe you struggled financially, emotionally, or mentally during their childhood. But alongside those flaws, you also gave love. You provided, you cared, you sacrificed in ways they may never fully understand. You did the best you could with the knowledge, resources, and circumstances you had at the time. To constantly be told, I'm like this because of you, is to be denied the truth that every adult is ultimately responsible for their own life. We all carry wounds from childhood. We all face challenges that weren't our fault. But at some point we must each decide how to heal, how to grow, how to take ownership of who we become. When an adult child refuses to take that step and instead chooses to place the weight of their every failure onto your shoulders, they're avoiding their own growth. They're staying stuck in the past, using it as a reason not to face the present. And while their pain may be real, it's not fair or healthy for them to demand that you carry it for them forever. Because here's the hard truth. Blame is easy. Responsibility is hard. It's easier to say, I can't succeed because of what you did, than to say, yes, I was hurt, but now I choose to heal and move forward. You are allowed to acknowledge your mistakes as a parent. You are allowed to feel remorse for moments you wish you could change. But you are not required to accept endless blame for another adult's choices. Your child's healing is ultimately their responsibility. Their growth is their journey. You can support, you can listen, you can encourage, but you cannot live their life for them. If you find yourself trapped in this cycle, remind yourself, I did my best with what I had. I loved them then and I love them now. But I cannot let their blame define me. You are not the sum of your past mistakes. You are more than the version of yourself they hold on to. And no matter what they say, you deserve peace in your own heart. Love doesn't mean accepting unfair blame. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and your child is to gently but firmly refuse to carry what isn't yours. 5. You never really loved me. Few words pierce the heart like this one. You never really loved me. In a single sentence, it feels as though everything you did, the late nights when you stayed awake worrying, the times you gave up your own dreams to provide for them, the sacrifices that nobody else saw, are erased. All the quiet, unseen acts of care feel dismissed, forgotten, or misunderstood. It's easy in that moment to feel crushed, to wonder, did I fail them? Was I not enough? Did my love not reach them? But take a deep breath. Step back from the wave of guilt and pain. The truth is this: your love is real, even if they cannot see it. When a grown-up child says, "You never really loved me," it often comes from their own unresolved hurt. Maybe they're grieving unmet expectations. Maybe they're struggling with feelings of abandonment, inadequacy, or comparison. Maybe they're trapped in their own pain, unable to recognize the imperfect, human, but genuine love you gave. Love doesn't always look like what someone wishes it to look like. You may not have been able to give them everything they wanted, but that does not mean you gave nothing. Perhaps you showed love through hard work, putting food on the table even when it cost you your health. Perhaps you showed love by staying when life tempted you to give up. Perhaps your love was quiet, steady, unspoken, but it was there day after day. It's important to remember, your love cannot be erased by someone's perception. Love is not invalidated just because it wasn't always understood. Children, no matter how old, sometimes view the past through a lens of pain. They may focus on what was missing rather than what was present. They may forget that parents are also human, learning as they go, often struggling with their own wounds and limitations. When your child says, "You never really loved me," it does not mean your love wasn't real. It means they are wrestling with their own feelings, their own narrative of the past. This is not to say you should dismiss their pain. It's okay to listen with compassion. It's okay to acknowledge where you fell short. But it's equally okay to remind yourself that you did the best you could with the knowledge and resources you had. Don't let those words make you doubt your own heart. You know the nights you cried quietly out of worry for them. You know the moments you chose their well-being over your own comfort. You know the love that lived in your actions, even if it wasn't always perfect. Love is not erased by misunderstanding. It endures. It remains part of who you are, no matter what anyone says. So when you hear those words, let them pass through you like a cold wind. You can grieve their pain without losing your truth. And your truth is simple. You did love them. You still do. 6. You're overreacting. Such a simple phrase. You're overreacting. Or maybe they say, you're being too dramatic. You're making a big deal out of nothing. On the surface, it might seem harmless, maybe even an attempt to calm things down. But underneath, these words carry a heavy weight. They dismiss your feelings. They reduce your emotions to something inconvenient or exaggerated. They make you question yourself, wondering, am I really making too much of this? Should I just stay quiet? This kind of response is not just a casual remark. It is a subtle form of emotional invalidation. It tells you that your experience doesn't matter, that your reaction isn't worth being taken seriously. And over time, hearing this repeatedly can create a painful pattern. Because here's the truth. Your emotions are valid. Maybe you feel hurt because of a careless comment. Maybe you feel disappointed because of a broken promise. Maybe you're simply tired of always being the one to give while receiving so little in return. None of these feelings make you too much. They make you human. When your child says, "You're overreacting," they are often trying to avoid responsibility for their words or actions. It's easier for them to label you as too emotional than to pause and reflect on whether they may have said or done something hurtful. By shifting the focus onto your reaction, they escape accountability. But you do not have to accept that narrative. Your feelings matter. Your dignity matters. Asking for respect is not overreacting. It is a basic expectation in any healthy relationship. It's important to remember that emotional invalidation, even when unintentional, creates distance. When someone constantly tells you that your feelings are too much, it silently trains you to suppress your voice, to stop expressing your truth. Over time, it can leave you feeling unseen, unheard, and isolated even in your own family. But you have the right to name your feelings without shame. You have the right to say, "This hurts me," and have that pain acknowledged, not dismissed. So when you hear "you're overreacting," pause and remind yourself, your emotions are signals, not weaknesses. They are telling you something about your boundaries, your needs, your inner truth. Feeling deeply is not a flaw. It is a strength, a sign of your humanity, your capacity for connection. Respect is never too much to ask for. If your adult child dismisses you in this way, you can respond calmly but firmly. You can say, "I'm not overreacting. I'm expressing how I feel. I'd like you to listen," instead of minimizing my experience. And if they still cannot or will not hear you, remember you don't have to shrink yourself to be acceptable. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to protect your emotional well-being. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. Never let anyone, not even your child, convince you otherwise. 7. I don't need your opinion. Yes, it's true our adult children have the right to live their own lives. They are free to make their own choices, to learn their own lessons, to walk their own paths. But when they consistently reject your thoughts with coldness or mockery, when every attempt to share your wisdom is met with, "I don't need your opinion," it cuts deeper than they may realize. 'Cause it's not just about disagreement. It's about respect. You have lived through storms they have yet to see. You have navigated hardships they might not even know about. The years have given you lessons that can't be learned from a book or a social media post. When you offer your perspective, it isn't to control them, it's because you care. It's because you want to help them avoid pain you've already endured. So when they dismiss you outright, it's more than a simple no. It feels like they are erasing your experience, your voice, even your worth. Of course, a healthy adult relationship between parent and child doesn't mean blind obedience. They do not have to agree with you. They do not have to follow your advice. But there is a world of difference between listening with kindness and shutting you down with disrespect. A loving child might say, "I appreciate your advice, but I need to handle this in my own way." Even if they choose differently, they still honor your intentions. They acknowledge that your words come from a place of love, even if they decide not to follow them. But a child who constantly responds with, "I don't need your opinion," is signaling something deeper. It's not just independence, it's detachment. It's a wall that says, "Your voice doesn't matter to me." Over time, this can create a painful distance. It can make you hesitant to speak at all, afraid of being ridiculed or ignored. It can leave you feeling invisible in a relationship that should be built on mutual respect. But here's what you need to remember. Your wisdom still holds value, even if they can't see it right now. You do not need their validation to know that your life experience is meaningful. You do not need their approval to know that your voice deserves to be heard. Sometimes, people only understand the worth of advice when life eventually teaches them the same lesson, often the hard way. So what can you do? Offer your thoughts without attachment. Say what you feel is important, but release the expectation that they must agree. Speak calmly and with love. If they choose to reject it, let it go without resentment. Maintain your dignity. If they respond with cruelty or mockery, you have the right to step back and protect your peace. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, even when there's disagreement. And if your adult child cannot meet you with that respect, it says more about their emotional state than your worth as a parent. Your voice matters. Whether they hear it or not, it still carries truth. 8. You're the one who needs help. Sometimes, when you gently call out your child's hurtful words or actions, you hope they'll pause, reflect, and at least consider your feelings. But instead, they twist the situation. Instead of taking responsibility, they throw it back at you with a sharp, dismissive line like, "You're the one who needs help." This isn't just defensiveness, it's a form of psychological manipulation. It's what many call gaslighting. Gaslighting is designed to make you doubt yourself. It turns the focus away from their behavior and redirects it toward your supposed problems. They might say things like, "You're too sensitive. Everyone else sees you're overreacting. You're imagining things, it's all in your head. You're the one who needs therapy, not me." First, you might feel confused. You replay the conversation in your mind, wondering, "Did I say something wrong? Am I really being unreasonable?" Slowly, their words chip away at your confidence. You begin to question your memory, your judgment, even your sanity. And that's the danger of gaslighting. It keeps you trapped in self-doubt while they avoid any accountability. But here's the truth you must hold on to. Seeing and naming hurtful behavior is not a flaw. Wanting respect is not a weakness. You are not crazy for wanting a healthy, loving relationship with your child. When an adult child deflects blame by accusing you instead, it often means they are unwilling or perhaps not yet emotionally capable of facing their own actions. It's easier for them to say, "You're the problem," than to admit they may have caused harm. It's a defense mechanism, but it's also deeply unfair. Healthy relationships require mutual accountability. They require both sides to be willing to listen, reflect, and sometimes say, "I was wrong. Hurt you. I'll do better." But when the response is always to blame you, no progress can be made. So what can you do when you hear, "You're the one who needs help"? Stay calm and grounded. Don't let their words provoke an emotional spiral. Take a breath before responding. Stand firm in your truth. You know what you experienced. Trust your feelings, they are valid, even if they're inconvenient for someone else. Set boundaries. If every conversation turns into blame shifting, you may need to limit those discussions or walk away when they become toxic. Seek support if needed. Talk to a trusted friend, counselor, or support group. Sometimes, hearing an objective voice can reaffirm that you're not imagining the problem. Remember, being gaslit doesn't mean you're weak. It means someone you love is choosing manipulation over honesty. And while you cannot control their choices, you can protect your own peace and clarity. Ultimately, a loving adult child will value your feelings even when they disagree. But if they continue to deflect and twist every attempt at honest conversation, it may be time to reevaluate how much emotional energy you give to that dynamic. You are not the villain they make you out to be. You are simply a parent longing for respect and understanding, and there is nothing wrong with that. What you need to remember: you are not invisible. Your worth has never diminished with time. The love, effort, and sacrifices you poured into your family remain part of the foundation of their lives, even if they fail to acknowledge it. You are not less valuable because you have aged. In fact, your years have made you richer in wisdom, deeper in compassion, and stronger than you may realize. Your voice still matters. Your feelings still matter. You still matter. You have the right to be respected and heard. Respect is not something you earn over and over again. It is something you inherently deserve, especially from those you've nurtured and supported. Even when there are disagreements, kindness and empathy should remain. You do not have to accept constant dismissal, criticism, or cruelty no matter who it comes from. Setting boundaries is not rejection. Many parents fear that setting limits means abandoning their child. But boundaries are not walls. They are gates that protect your emotional health. By saying, "I will not allow myself to be spoken to this way," you are not cutting love off, you are preserving it. A healthy relationship cannot survive without mutual respect, and sometimes a little distance is necessary for clarity and healing. Love should never be a weapon. If your child uses love to control you by making you feel guilty, fearful, or obligated, that is not real love. Love is freely given, not demanded through manipulation or threats. If you feel drained, unworthy, or trapped every time you interact with them, it's a sign to step back and protect your heart. Remember this: you are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to say enough without shame. You are allowed to prioritize your own emotional well-being, even when others misunderstand. You are not alone in this journey. Many loving parents find themselves facing the painful reality of strained relationships with their grown children. But no matter how heavy this feels, you still hold the power to honor your truth, to set limits, and to nurture your own spirit. In the end, real love is never about control or fear. It is about freedom, respect, and care flowing in both directions. If that is missing, it doesn't mean you have failed. It simply means you must now protect the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. Always remember, you have already given so much to your family: your time, your energy, your sacrifices, and above all, your love. Those years of care and effort are not erased just because someone fails to recognize them. Your worth is not measured by their words, their approval, or their gratitude. It is measured by the truth of your heart and the life you've lived with kindness and integrity. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. You deserve to be treated with respect and compassion, especially in this stage of life, when you have already carried so many responsibilities. Aging does not make you less valuable. It makes you wiser, richer in experience, and more deserving than ever of gentleness. And if any relationship, even with your own child, brings nothing but pain, guilt, or exhaustion, you have the right to pause and protect yourself. Choosing self-love is not selfish. It is necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and honor your own well-being. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might bring comfort or strength to someone else who is silently facing the same struggles. And if you want more reflections and gentle reminders on living happily, strongly, and peacefully at any age, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. Together, we can build a community where wisdom is valued, where your voice matters, and where your soul feels seen. Take care of yourself, guard your peace, nurture your spirit, because you truly deserve it.